Hier ist 8 Milliarden, der Auslandspodcast des Spiegel. Es ist Karfreitag, der 15. April 2022 und es ist der 51. Tag in Putins Krieg. Mein Name ist Olaf Häuser und wir senden diese Folge im Originalton. Denn wir haben das Interview auf Englisch geführt und unser Gast heute ist Kirill Martynov, der stellvertretende Chefredakteur der Novaya Gazeta, der letzten verbliebenen unabhängigen Zeitung Russlands. Die Novaya Gazeta ist ein echter Sonderfall in der russischen Medienlandschaft. Wie beim Spiegel sind auch dort die Mitarbeiter Mehrheitseigentümer der Zeitung und deshalb ist es für Wladimir Putins Propagandaregime schwieriger, dieses Medium auszuschalten. Allerdings ist es auch nicht ganz unmöglich, denn nach der zweiten Warnung der russischen Medienaufsicht wegen angeblicher Verstöße gegen das ausländische Agentengesetz hat die Novaya Gazeta ihren Betrieb in Russland erst einmal eingestellt. Stumm geblieben ist die letzte unabhängige Stimme Russlands, wie sie die Frankfurter Rundschau vor kurzem nannte, allerdings nicht. Aus dem europäischen Ausland heraus soll die neu gegründete Novaya Gazeta Europe die Arbeit weiterführen. Als eigenständiges Unternehmen ohne rechtliche Verbindungen zur russischen Version, damit zumindest auf diesem offiziellen Rechtswege keine Sanktionen aus dem Mutterland zu befürchten sind. Chefredakteur dieser neuen Zeitung ist Kirill Martynov, den ich gestern Mittag am 50. Tag des Krieges in der Ukraine gesprochen habe. Ich wollte von ihm wissen, wie die Novaya Gazeta ihre neue Aufgabe angeht, wie er die aktuelle Situation in Russland einschätzt und welche Möglichkeiten bleiben, die schier übermächtige Propagandamaschine in Russland zu kontern. Let's start a little bit before the war, please. Even before the war in Ukraine, the Novaya Gazeta was a special newspaper in Russia. Can you tell us about your work there before, well, let's say February 2022?
Well, before this February, we still was a last and only independent newspaper in Russia, in the whole country. We is self-owned media company. Novaya Gazeta is owned by its journalists. That is why it's not so easy to shut us down, because you can compare us and our situation with, let's say, radio station Echo Moskvy, and they just the owner of it's basically a Gazprom Media, state-owned company. They just said that they don't want to hear any radio news from this team of journalists. And after that, Echo Moskvy was stopped. Our situation was different. We keep fighting for what remains of freedom of speech in Russia for many years. I personally worked for Novaya Gazeta for last 8 years, and I came in our newsroom after the annexation of Crimea, because I was strongly disagree with this situation. I feel like, okay, we Russians, we probably have, like any country in the world, we have some national interests. And I believe that our strongest and best national interest to have a good communication with our neighbors, to, let's say, to have some cultural and economical exchange with Ukraine. And that is how we pretend to help, Crimean Russian people or Donbass Russian people and so on.
So the annexation of Crimea was the journalistic starting point for you?
It was almost exactly 8 years ago. I was in Kyiv at the time on the 12th of April of 2014. And that was the point when first people with military equipment was found out on Donbass. And I read this news from Kyiv, and it was terrible. So from that time, I work for Novaya Gazeta. We have, let's say, 6 journalists killed in our team. For our luck, the last such experience of killing journalism, it was a decade ago, and not in this contemporary situation. And we are strongly known, we are well known in Europe, in Russia, for our reports and our investigative stories. And basically for now, all we have, it's our name. Anyone in Europe, in newspaper world or media world, they They know us, and that is why we can try to create new projects and ask for solidarities and support and create new projects and so on.
Einer der bisher letzten Morde an Journalisten der Novaya Gazeta geschah am 19. Januar 2009.
Nach dem Moskauer Doppelmord an einem Anwalt und einer Journalistin wartet die Polizei noch auf Hinweise. Obwohl der Mord am helllichten Tag auf einer belebten Straße in der Nähe des Kreml geschah, haben sich keine Tatzeugen gemeldet. Der Chefredakteur der regierungskritischen Zeitung Novaya Gazeta, Dmitri Muratov, sprach in Berlin auf Einladung der Konrad-Adenauer-Stiftung über die Ermordung der Journalistin Anastasia Baburova. Die 25-Jährige arbeitete gerade mal 3 Monate für die Novaya Gazeta. Muratov möchte die Arbeit seiner Zeitung nicht einstellen. Auch in Gedenken an die 2006 ermordete Journalistin der Gaseta Anna Politkovskaya.
Not only, but one of the serious reasons why we still have a printed version of newspaper is that Novaya Gazeta was the only source of independent information in Russian prisons all around country. If you're imprisoned in Russia, you can ask to bring any newspaper that legally exists in country. And the only newspapers that bring you information about human rights and the other prisons and political prosecutions and the situation, economic and so on, it was Novaya Gazeta. So we have a very special part of this audience of newspaper in prisons. And you can imagine, let's say, if I know it's quite, stories about how exotic it was life in Russia. So you can imagine that, for example, one very well-known director of theater, he was in prison for some kind of, let's say, economical crime, but probably he was just an innocent person. He was a very intelligent person. He was very afraid to go in jail. And when he found himself inside, he was met with full respect from other prisoners, because they said, "Oh, Alexei, we know it's not Navalny, of course, it's another Alexei. Oh, Alexei, we know you very well. We read a lot about your criminal prosecution in this well-renowned Novaya Gazeta. Take the best place in our prison," and so on. And he described it to me. It was, you can imagine that your work is really useful for people in this situation.
Wow, that's a very nice story. Very nice. Still a little bit before the war, can you describe how Putin got control over all the much viewed media, and how you managed, maybe you said it at the start, to have your license still to publish?
Yeah, Putin muted medias for many years, and a decade ago it was, or more than a decade ago, it was TV channels, and after that it was the turn of big business newspapers like Kommersant and Vedomosti, and after that it was a time for censorship for, let's say, news agency in Russia. And after that, they bring themselves to some small media outlets, which is printed only digitally, and so on. And at the beginning of this year, there were probably only 3 independent media in Russia, and it looks like very strange, because we have only one newspaper, it was Novaya Gazeta. We have only one radio station, it was Echo Moskvy. And we have only one TV channel. It was TV channel Dozhd or Rain, and they had very, very strange situation, because it was a TV channel which was created by a Russian citizen to broadcast in Russia. They have Russian monies, and after this all, they had a status of foreign agent in Russia, and it's still unbelievable. But for now, they had just shut it down, because they just. It was too dangerous to this journalist of Dozhd to cover the situation in Ukrainian war, and they can't do something else in this situation, so they just to shut down its broadcasting in Russia.
Hier eine kurze Zusammenfassung des bisher Gehörten. Die Novaya Gazeta ist momentan die einzige Nachrichtenquelle in Russland, die noch nicht wegen des neuen Gesetzes zur Abwehr ausländischer Agenten geschlossen wurde. Manche Hörerinnen und Hörer werden sich an mein Gespräch mit Christian Esch Anfang dieses Jahres erinnern, als er davon erzählte, dass laut Gesetz jeder Medienschaffende in seinen Veröffentlichungen betonen muss, kein ausländischer Agent zu sein. Aus diesem Grund pausiert auch die Veröffentlichung der Gaseta in Russland, ebenso wie der Betrieb des unabhängigen Radiosenders Echo Moskau und des Fernsehsenders Dost. Ein besonderer Vertriebsweg der Novaya Gazeta sind russische Gefängnisse, weil den Häftlingen zusteht, jede öffentlich verfügbare russische Zeitung zu lesen. Bis heute wurden 6 Journalisten der Gaseta ermordet, viele am helllichten Tag und auf offener Straße. Bekanntestes Opfer war Olga Politkowskaja, die intensiv über Menschenrechtsverletzungen in Tschetschenien, dem Reich des gefürchteten Ramsan Kadyrov, berichtet hatte. Schon deshalb muss auch die zukünftige Europa-Ausgabe, die Kirill Martynov leitet, besonders darauf achten, nicht von staatlichen Stellen gefunden und überwacht zu werden. Und gleichzeitig will sie den Russinnen und Russen eine Stimme geben, die gegen den Krieg sind.
Do you know already what your fields of coverage will be? Which subjects you will?
We feel like in this situation, there are a lot of Russians who doesn't support war, millions of them, and some of these Russians stays in Russia, some of them are abroad, and some of them are already part of some Western communities. And I believe our main field is to become a kind of voice for these Russians and to become a kind of communicator, a mediator for these communities. Because we have to deliver facts inside Russia. It's our main task, and we have to be blocked in Russia in few weeks probably. For now, they just don't have anything to block because we didn't create a website yet. But after we do our website, for sure they will block us, like they blocked Medusa and any other independent media. So we want to find some solutions how to deliver our information to wide public in Russian. We want to report everything that happened in Russia to our network of reporters and bring it to Russia itself, to Russian public itself, and outside Russia. And I'm not feel myself in exile. I feel myself like on long business trip, and for many reasons I feel myself home, because in Russia my life was a kind of situation when you just wait. Some policeman group, they come to your home and to find some so-called illegal information on your computer, and it was a permanent situation for many years. Some days was quite calm, but some days was quite dangerous. I strongly feel that journalists of our team, they really share these values. We want to live in peaceful Europe. We want Russia to be a normal country and have just good connections to our neighbors, and to stop this war and these war crimes and so on. We want to become a European Russian newspaper, not a group of boring people that just want to have some money and they want to publish, let's say, a newspaper called Our Small Russian Berlin. No, I don't dream about this destiny for my team.
Yeah, I wouldn't have imagined that after seeing your work. Don't worry. But talking about Russia, what do you hear from people back in Russia, if you are able to talk about that?
People are scared. That's a basic point. And, sometimes if you are scared, you feel like you have to find some strong men who protect you. And in this case, you can find yourself a supporter of President Putin, or you have some other options. Let's say you just pretend to keep silence these days. And a lot of people just want to keep silence to protect their families. And some people still protesting, and I feel like those people who are staying in Russia and still find some ways to protest against this war, they're kind of real heroes. I know that Ukrainians, they don't like when we call such people heroes, because real heroes, Ukrainians heroes, they destroy Russian tanks on the battlefield. And this is true, of course, but, we have no stingers, so we have to find some other way to fight this war.
So what do you make of Russian society at the moment? When you say that many people are against the war, and obviously many Russians support the war too.
I feel, for me, Russian society is on the edge of kind of civil war, because it's a lot of stories when, family are divided, campaigns and professional teams are divided, and groups of friends are divided, and everyone hates each other because of this war, because some people support it and other people, of course, they doesn't support it, and so on. And I have a lot of personal stories here. For example, at the first days of war, I still was a teacher in some state Russian university. It was the end of February. Basically, I came to journalism and I just want to talk with people. And my real profession was a philosophy teacher. I taught for almost 20 years for now. So it was, a seminar on, let's say, moral philosophy of Immanuel Kant. And I said that, of course, if we have some course on ethics, we have to discuss war, because it started and we can't pretend that it never happens. So I feel like it was a seminar on real issue in ethics these days. And that seminar was, it was blended. That means that, that some people was inside the campus in our classroom, and some people was linked to this seminar, to this discussion via Zoom. And after I talked for some time, some person appeared, a new person appeared in Zoom, and it was the father of one of my students. And this person said that he is a former special service officer in Russia. And he also said that such people like me should not teach anyone because of my anti-war stance. And he said that he will write down some paper to police to
report
basically report me and basically to imprison me. Yes, and I started to cry because I was really tired. It was let's say third or 5 days of the war. I just cried to him that he can do anything he wants, but I will never stop to talk about this. Just do anything, please. It's up to you. And he did it. And in few days, I was just fired from this university. And it was, the situation when you can imagine I had good relations with the dean of the department. I'm not sure if he was my friend, but we have just normal professional relations. And he said to me, okay, we got this report. What we have to do next? And I answered that, I understand pretty well that if you don't fire me, they will fire you. And I'm not sure I can take such scale of responsibility. So let's pretend we never knew each other. Let's I just can't write down my own letter that I don't want to teach anymore. And you probably just can help me to delete these records in Zoom, because it's on your account, on the account of department. And after that, I probably will have no criminal prosecution, and you have no problems with the other part of your team. And this, I believe it's thousands of such stories in Russia for now. And I'm not sure how they can still pretend they have some kind of just ordinary, social life in such situation. Because it's reports, it's hunt for so-called traitors, it's this clash between pro-war and anti-war people and so on. If we have, for now, we have fifth day of war, I believe it would be even worse next week. I mean, in the situation on the battlefield and the situation inside Russian society, the situation's gonna be just even worse.
Yeah, I think so too. Can you estimate how widespread the propaganda works in Russia? And together with that, the question, is there any possibility for people to get informed by independent media still?
Yeah, I agree that it's the most important questions for now. And at least first of them is quite complicated because, I believe that Russian authorities, they want to create such scenario like in China. In China, more than 90% of population, they just don't need any independent source of information because they have a lot of information inside China and they have access to the whole digital ecosystem of Chinese internet. And that's basically all they need. If Chinese government controls these people, it's not a technical solution, but a social solution. So they control the China itself and the China society. And for now, we have the same situation in Russia. We have strong social medias inside Russia, owned by Russian companies, so basically the state for now, because everything is owned by state. In contemporary Russia, it's VK holding, the part of its Odnoklassniki, social media, and so on. And probably the only thing that they can solve in this to create this kind of national ecosystem of social media, they still have any contemporary platform for video hosting like YouTube. They don't have YouTube on their own. And they pretend to solve it somehow. They already blocked most of the popular social media in the world. We have, as you know, we have Twitter blocked, Facebook and Instagram is blocked too. And in Russia, there were, let's say, almost 40 millions of people who used Instagram daily. So you can imagine what the impact was on Russian society. And even more, they pretend that Facebook and Instagram is a kind of extremistic community, whatever it means. Nobody basically know what to do with this legal obligation.
Die russische Gesellschaft, sagt Kirill Martynov, ist gespalten in Kriegsbefürworter und Kriegsgegner, heimliche und öffentliche, die stets fürchten müssen, von den Propagandavertretern denunziert zu werden. Genauso wie es Kirill bei seiner letzten Vorlesung passierte, als ein Vater eines Studenten ankündigte, einen Report an die Obrigkeit zu schicken, um Kirills kriegskritische Diskussionen zu unterbinden. Man kann sich leicht vorstellen, was geschehen wäre, wenn er nicht von sich aus den Job gekündigt und sein Dekan die Zoom-Aufzeichnung jener Vorlesung nicht gelöscht hätte. Social Media ist in Russland weitgehend blockiert. Nur die russisch kontrollierten VK-Plattformen funktionieren noch und einiges von YouTube. Ein eigenes russisch kontrolliertes YouTube gibt es noch nicht. Reicht das, um die Menschen zu versorgen, die sich auch andere Meinungen, anderen Input als staatliche Sendungen ansehen wollen? Eine mögliche Lösung könnten Virtual Private Networks darstellen, sogenannte VPN. Auf Englisch natürlich VPN.
I feel like, that let's say 10% of Russians or maybe 15% of Russian citizens, they still can use different sources of independent information just because they want to do it. The national slogan for now is VPN. VPN can avoid all these blocks and all these problems with Russian censorship. You just read news if you stay in Berlin, if you use VPN with Berlin server. And for now, it's worked pretty good, and millions of people in Russia already can do it. But the problem is, that from the one side, we have really lack of information. I mean that if you destroy the whole professional teams of journalists, and you only have some propaganda from the one side, and you have some bloggers which try to recreate this media landscape for Russian public, it's just not enough. If some people from, let's say, TV channel Dosh, they try to recreate the TV channel like their personal YouTube accounts, it's not the same. It's not the same level of production. And so we have to find this solution just in professional terms, how to recreate, partly at least, how to recreate this media market for Russia. And not a propaganda one, but some other kind of media. And the real problem and the main problem here, I believe, is that the majority of Russians, they just don't want to get independent information for now, because it could be a trauma. It's very dangerous for Russians to get facts in this situation.
But why is that so? Forgive me, because I have no idea what it's like to live in this contemporary Russia of Putin's reign.
I try to explain my idea. As you know, that central point of Russian national mythology for now, it's the victory in the Great War, in Second World War. I know that Great War in Europe is linked to First World War, but in Russia we don't have any remembering of the First World War, and Great Patriotic War. It's another name of last part of Second World War. So people feel like they have ancestors who won this war, who defeated Nazis, who obviously was good people, who saved planet. And we can trace our present state and our present Russian society to those great victory. This is the main point of Putin propaganda, and probably he himself, President Putin, he probably really believes in this.
Does he really?
He is the kind of person, I call him TV viewer number one. Very important TV viewer, which is, which takes for serious everything his own propaganda puppets created for these decades. And I feel like it's real serious problem that president is not only government is forced propaganda to do anything, but vice versa, propaganda shows a picture in which President Putin himself believes for now. So I believe Russian just don't want to get facts and don't want to get independent source of information, because if they do so, they face real problems with their national identity. They have to ask questions: who we are, why we are doing this with Ukraine, who is Mr. Putin, at least, why he created all these war crimes, and how we can be linked to those people who defeated Nazis if we already did all these crimes in Ukraine. So it could be a very dangerous discussion to the Russian national identity. I feel like people in Russia just don't ready for this discussion, and that is why they don't want to to find some independent source of information. They can live for months and years with Russian state propaganda, just because this propaganda, it says something pleasant, something you like, something that makes you feel yourself comfortable, that allows you to be a good person that lives in a good country and is governed by a good president, and so on.
So they choose living in the glorious past as an easy way out of the present, right?
This is a real strategy, because every day Russians still believe that everything is okay and just don't want to look outside its informational bubble. We have more and more crimes and more killed people. So I believe that we have to recreate this kind of national identity without this central myth about victory in those war, because we have another war for now, and it's much more important to understand what happened with this war for now.
So how can you inform yourself still and outside of the propaganda machine?
Russians still get access to YouTube. The authorities still can't block it. I feel like here in Europe, people don't understand what YouTube means for Russian public, because we have no professional TV channels and some concurrent TV channels for many years. We have only different forms of propaganda, And if you don't want to get propaganda, you go to YouTube. If you don't want to be a journalist who works for TV propaganda, you create your own YouTube channel. And I feel like, that Russian speaking YouTube is a kind of national heritage. And there were a lot of Ukrainian bloggers, for example, who works on both markets, on Ukraine and Russia. And we had a very flourishing YouTube, and we still have it for now. It's I feel like some people just have to write some academic research on the situation with Russian YouTube. And again, more than 15 million of Russian citizens watch YouTube weekly these days. It's more than audience of any of federal TV channels, which is owned by Russian state.
Viele Russinnen und Russen, erzählt Kirill, lebten lieber in der glorreichen Vergangenheit, als Russland stark war und die Welt vor den Nazis gerettet hat. Und deshalb träumen sie lieber mit der Propaganda von angeblich kommenden Zeiten, in denen Russland wieder das große, starke Reich sein wird, das es mal war. Auch hierzulande trifft man solche Menschen, die sich allerdings freiwillig selbst propagandaisieren und dann von neuen, alten Zeiten träumen, nur dass dann die Nazis gewinnen. Erstaunlicherweise sehe ich persönlich hierzulande YouTube als ein potenzielles Einstiegsloch für solche Verschwörungsabgründe an. Kirill aber betont, dass YouTube so ziemlich der einzige Medienkanal in Russland ist, durch den die Menschen auch an nicht propagandistische Informationen kommen und sie auch verbreiten können. Eine weitere Möglichkeit ist der russische Kurznachrichtendienst Telegram. Hierzulande auch ein wenig in Verruf geraten, aus denselben Gründen.
The Telegram messenger is quite strange case for me because it's owned by a Russian private company which was origined in Russia and owned by a Russian entrepreneur Pavel Durov, and it's based somewhere on the Near East, in Emirates. They don't have open source code for its messenger, and I'm not sure if Durov has no connections to Russian authorities in this situation, because it's very strange why they still allow this messenger to operate in Russia and to become a real huge source of independent information for dozens of millions of people. But we have no evidences that Durov is connected to Russian special services. So we just can publish there some information and to look what happened next, what happened with Telegram, and is it safe for people to use it inside Russia? I'm not pretty sure if it's safe. All other channels in Russia, independent channels in Russia, basically blocked. They even want to block Wikipedia itself, because Wikipedia is not a news media outlet, of course, but they write on some events that happened right now. So for now, Russian authorities think not only about blocking YouTube, but also about blocking Wikipedia. And of course, it was really shameful, because, they have such a great level of fear of facts. They just want to block everything besides its own propaganda, which was created for its own money. And they understand, Russian authorities think that journalist is such a person who just wait to some commands, from politicians, from presidents, and so on. Just, boy or girl, let's do it. Let's do it. You have
write
to
this,
write
write that. Yeah.
Yeah. Just jump as high as we ordered to you. So it's incredible. And all our other ways, source of information is already blocked, or they want to block. But basically, it's quite a long answer. But at this point, we start to think about how to deliver our information if everything will be blocked in Russia, and we have different solutions for this. It's
okay. If you can, then please tell me about it.
For example, I want to publish Novaya Gazeta, like a printed copy of newspaper around the Europe, once till this 9th of May. I'm not sure if we can publish it. It's right now like it's going to be a gift for Vladimir Putin, of course. So if they shut us down, we just recreate ourselves like in dozens of outlets around the world. And I feel like it's going to be, an art project when some of these printed copies of our newspaper, it would be leaked illegally to Russian Federation, and some people will share it from hands to hands. And I feel like we have very nice story and repeat, of course, of those tragic events of 20th century. So it's kind of low-tech solution. We think about shortwave radio stations. We think about satellite TV channels, which to use which you just need to some downlink equipment, and it can be blocked by Russian authorities. We think about the experience of digital piracy, because in Russia there is still a lot of people who use illegal content, free content in internet, who is prohibit this copyright law. And I believe that such things like torrents can be very helpful to deliver our political and public information to Russian citizens.
Mit einem Low-Tech-Ansatz und subversiven Methoden, so entwirft Kirill Martynov mögliche Schritte, könnte die Novaya Gazeta weiterhin die russische Gesellschaft mit Nachrichten und Stories versorgen. Auch wenn der Staat das Unternehmen schließt, wie den Fernsehsender TV Dost oder die Plattform von Echo Moskau. Zum Beispiel mit Zeitungsausgaben, die unter der Hand weitergegeben werden, Kurzwellensendern, über die illegalen Torrent-Vertriebswege russischer Raubkopierer und über die Verteilung von freien VPN an russische Bürger. Moderne Maßnahmen und Methoden, die zum Teil auch schon zum Beispiel im Zweiten Weltkrieg funktioniert haben.
I know a few groups of people, let's say, who pretend to provide VPNs for free for millions of Russians. So it's going to work like this. You take WhatsApp, for example. You find any national numbers of Russian citizens which start from +7. It's Russian international code. And after that, you just send dozens of millions of people who use WhatsApp in Russia an instruction how to install VPNs for free and why it's safe for them and how they can obtain some independent source of information. And we have a lot of such scenarios, we become really covert people these decades while we live in Russia and, observed Russian authorities. We can use some of them methods too.
That's very thrilling to hear. And your goal has to be to shake the Russians out of their comfort zone, lulled in by state TV.
Yeah.
If you want to do that, getting into the comfort zone of Russians who are, because they are comfortable, not very well informed. What do you see as the biggest danger right now in Russia for the truthful reporting of events, and what gives you hope in this mission?
Well, it's easy to answer the part about hope because I really hope and I believe that there are a lot of young and well-educated people in Russia who already decided to be a part of global world and safe world and peaceful world, who did not need this war and who will, share the common values with these people in the European Union and in other democratic countries. And I believe we have, let's say, thousands of hundreds of such people in Moscow, in St. Petersburg, in Yekaterinburg, in Novosibirsk, and in other big Russian cities. And I understand what Putin regime will do with them, because you can't, of course, these people are afraid for now, but you can't do anything with them. You can't just, you even can't imprison all of them. You can't send them out of country. There are just too much of them. And I feel like it's our audience, and these people can provide us information. Some of them become our journalists or create its own media outlets in this crisis, during this crisis, and so on.
Okay, and what about the dangers?
The danger is, it's a lot of dangers. For example, it's a danger that some people like Ramzan Kadyrov himself, he become a very important person in Moscow. not only in Chechenian Republic, because Kadyrov has, a unique trait for contemporary Russian political system. He is a person who probably ready to kill his enemies and his political opponents. And in this situation, when we stay on the edge of civil war, Kadyrov has really good chances to go even higher in the political system of Russian Federation. Kadyrov-like, some person who has the same traits.
Erst vor wenigen Tagen veröffentlichte Ramsan Kadyrov ein Video, in dem er eine große Offensive im Osten der Ukraine ankündigte und die Separatistengebiete Donetsk und Lugansk als erste Ziele nannte, die befreit werden würden.
It's very strange if you speak about journalism, for example. The strangest thing is we probably will we will force to work like undercover operation. We probably can't publish names of journalists. We probably can't provide them any legal assist. So we have no accreditation and such like thing. We can't even pay for they work, not only because of sanctions and that money, these days money just don't cross borders from Europe to Russia and vice versa, but it's too dangerous for them, and Russian authorities will prosecute such legal work, and so journalists become, a kind of spies or some undercover investigators, which is works anonymously and has its money, its funds in cryptocurrency and so on. And it's very strange. I'm not sure if we're ready for such situation, just in psychological terms, because, journalism, it's a public activity. If you're a kind of private journalist, it's a very strange situation for you and for your editor.
Zum wiederholten Male lerne ich meine Situation neu zu schätzen, während ich mit Menschen über den Krieg in der Ukraine spreche, die meinen Komfort nicht teilen. Eine trockene, warme Wohnung, ein guter Job mit sicherer Bezahlung und, zumindest nehme ich das stark an, ohne böswillige Überwachung irgendeiner Art. Und ohne Angst für das, was ich sage oder sende, Repressalien zu fürchten. Oder eine Verhaftung. Oder eine lange Gefängnisstrafe, weil ich den Krieg Krieg nenne. Oder weil ich meine Meinung äußere und meine Recherchen veröffentliche, die plötzliche Ermordung auf offener Straße. Das war 8 Milliarden am Karfreitag, und weil nun Ostern ist, das Fest des Friedens, werden wir am kommenden Ostermontag mal nicht über den Krieg reden. Ich möchte mich eigentlich schon für die Gelegenheit bedanken, mit Kirill Martynov zu sprechen, danke aber lieber ihm, dass er sich Zeit für ein so eingehendes Gespräch genommen hat und hoffe, dass er bald mehr von den neuen Projekten der Novaya Gazeta berichten kann. Mein Dank gebührt auch meinem Kollegen Imre Balzer, der dieses Interview organisiert hat. Marc Glücks, der Audioingenieur dieser Folge, hat sich freiwillig für die Postproduktion am Feiertag gemeldet und dann die Backfeed-Spur unseres Gastes klanglich restauriert. Dafür möchte ich ihm ebenfalls herzlich danken. Last but not least danke ich allen Wesen, die uns zugehört haben und auch unserem englischen Gespräch bis hierher gefolgt sind. Sie wissen, dass Sie uns Kritik, Anregungen, Themenvorschläge per Mail oder per WhatsApp senden können. Die Kontaktdaten finden Sie wie gewohnt in der Beschreibung dieser Folge. Bleiben Sie tapfer und gesund, bis wir uns am kommenden Mittwoch wieder hören. Ich wünsche Ihnen allen von ganzem Herzen ein friedliches und erholsames Osterfest und verbleibe wie gewohnt, Ihr Olaf Häuser.